I said I'd do a strawberry update. We have been picking some strawberries, and it's almost like every day new strawberries become ready. If on the previous evening they're not quite ripe, by the time you come round to it the following day they're ready for picking. It's been a decent year for strawberries. And why I like to put them in tall pots is that when you get trusses like this and they overhang, they're not touching the ground, so they're not going to get damaged by water splash and soil, but also they're above the ground, so less likely to be affected by slugs. And you've got to be careful when you grow them in pots that you check all the way around your pots, because you don't want to miss any. Now this is the actual strawberry plant that I potted up on my video on how to grow strawberries. Some of you might be growing courgettes, and if you are, and if you haven't actually put them into their final positions, what I would say is make sure you put plenty of organic fertilizer or compost into the ground first. You want to create a bowl, a football sized bowl, in which to then place your plant. And one thing I've been doing in recent years is creating a bit of a trench around the plant, and the idea is when I water the plant, the water will run away from the actual stem, and the more it does that the better, because it reduces the risk of stem rot. And this reservoir of water will help keep the plant hydrated, particularly during these dry spells that we're getting at the moment. The bottle gourd is settling in really well in its new home. This is the plant that I potted up into a larger pot a couple of weeks ago, and keeping in mind that this particular location is where I've kept bottle gourds for the last couple of years, so why change something that works? So I'm hoping that this plant will do similar and produce a few bottle gourds for me once it climbs this trellis and makes its way round this frame that I've given. And you can see how the plant attaches itself using these vines, and it will climb, and before you know it, it will be covering this whole area, and I'll hopefully have some tasty bottle gourds to eat. Just taking a look inside my polytunnel as to how the plants are getting on. The chillies that I put into the former radish bed are looking lovely and green. What I've got in front of the chillies are some kohlrabi plants. When they get to about tennis ball size, I'd say they're perfect for picking. And due to this varying heat and dry spell that we've had, I think the irregular watering has caused my kohlrabi to split, but the other two are okay. Chillies that I put directly into the beds in the polytunnel are doing really well. And you'll recall just to the right hand side of those chillies I planted some purple queen dwarf beans, and they're flowering. In fact, the flowers are stunning to look at. So you can have vegetables that are good to look at, hence there are varieties that are useful as ornamentals. I'll take a little zoom in onto this plant. You can see a small pod emerging. This is the raised bed. You'll recall a few weeks ago where I said I'd harvest the radishes and planted up some chillies, which are at the back there, and there was bare ground in front where I said I'd sown some dwarf purple beans. Now I'm not sure whether it's the heat of the greenhouse, but these dwarf purple beans are a lot taller than I would expect them to be, and yet they've started to flower. So it may just be the location, and it's forced the plant to grow a lot taller than they would normally get. But as long as it doesn't get too tall, I'm okay with that. Just to the right there are the chillies that I put in pots. I'm really pleased this year. They seem to have bushed out quite a lot, and that's indicative of hopefully a future crop of plenty of chillies. Now it's time to pot up my chilli plants. I initially transplanted them when I pricked them out into tiny little pots, and then I moved them on into these pots here. Again, they're not the final pot to be thinking about putting my chillies into. What I'm going to be doing today is potting up and placing into a larger pot, and that'll be the final pot that I think I'll leave this particular prairie fire chilli in. And you know the chilli's ready for potting up. If I just hold the camera underneath, you can see that the roots are more than visible, and that's a sign that the plant's ready to be potted up. One thing that I will say is some people will snip the chilli off, and that's called topping. I've done that before, but it's not something I particularly would promote, because this variety that I've got already bushes out anyway, and you can see all these side stems, and so I don't think there's real need to particularly top this variety of chilli anyway. And another thing to keep in mind when you are potting up is just tease some of the roots loose, so that when it goes into its new home, the plant is naturally going to be searching out new soil or compost, and it will be a lot healthier as a result. So I've finished potting up the chilli plants into their final pots, and it's looking good. So what I'm going to be doing now, which is a vital part of this process, is giving it a good soak, and then we'll put it on a sunny windowsill in the kitchen and let it get on. Now, having cleared that area of lettuce, I'm trying to decide what best to place here. I think I'm going to go with another cucumber plant, and I've got a few chilli plants that I think I'll put in the bed. Now, I have grown chillies in this particular spot before and they've been fine, so I'll carry on with that approach. So I'll get these dug into the ground and show you how it all looks at the end. Now that I've got the plants into the ground, I ensured that I gave them a real good drink. It's always important that whether you're transplanting plants into the ground or into a larger container, you must give them plenty of water to help them establish in the new home. So this was an episode with quite a big emphasis on chilli plants. I hope you've got some good ideas, and if you're not up to that point yet where you're potting up your chillies, I hope the ideas that I showed you are useful in giving you encouragement to go ahead and pot up your chillies into a larger container or to transplant them into the ground. Thanks for watching. Hope you've liked what you've seen, and please subscribe if you haven't done so.